Let's go. The CFB quarterfinals begin tonight on ESPN. The odds from ESPN Bet are out. Penn State heavily favored, 13.5 points over Boise State. The largest spread, though, belongs to Texas. 14-point favorites against Arizona State. Good morning to Desmond Howard, who is joining us from Pasadena. And let's focus on the task at hand tonight. Here's Des, because there is one job for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions, and that is to stop Ashton, Jeanty. This guy had 2,500 yards on the ground. We know he was a Heisman Trophy finalist, but can he lead to the Broncos to an upset over Penn State?
Not only was Jeanty a Heisman Trophy finalist, he was a very, very, very close second to Travis Hunter. And I spoke to him after the ceremony, and he was not happy at all. He thought he should have walked away with that trophy. His teammates believe he should have walked away with that trophy. So they're going to come into this game with a huge chip on their shoulder with something to prove. I'm not sure you can look at them as a Cinderella team, but because of who they are, what conference they play in, a lot of people do not respect Boise State. Me, as an analyst, we love Boise State. We know what they bring to the table. Unc can tell you, when you have an offensive line who's motivated to dominate an opponent, no matter who the opponent is, because they love the guy behind them, whether it's a quarterback or a running back, that they're going to come out here on the mission. So these guys, I cannot wait to watch this game. Not only does Jeanty want to prove that he's the best running back in all of college football, which he is. In the draft, he will be RB #1, but he believes he should have won the Heisman, and so does his teammates, and they're going to be out to prove a point.
Yeah, I agree with you, Desmond. I think the thing is that when we saw Boise State spring the upset on Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, you've got to keep the game close early. You cannot let Penn State run away and hide. Keep the game close, get it to the second half, get into the fourth quarter where you're only a possession down. Now, if they win this game, Ashton Jeanty is going to have his best game. He's going to have to run haywire. He's going to have to go well over 200 yards, and is he capable? Because if I'm Penn State, I'm selling out. I'm going to make the quarterback. Now, Desmond, this is the way I approach it if I'm a defensive coordinator, and I know I got a great running back over there. If your quarterback goes out and throws for 350 yards, 3-4 touchdowns, and he doesn't turn the football over, I walk to the center field and I shake his hand. Congratulations, son. Good luck moving forward. But I am not going to let that running back go get those yards, possess the football, keep my offense off the field, keep their offense on the field, ground out time of possession, and beat me. I'm not going to let Jeanty take this ball game over. I am going to force their hand. I am going to force their quarterback to play his best game of his career in order for them to beat. But can Boise State win? Nobody gives Boise State a whole lot of credit because of the conference that they play in, but they're here. They all lost by one score against Oregon early in the season in Oregon, and Jeanty ran for 192. He's going to need that type of game or even more in order to beat Penn State.
Yo, Desmond, you're telling me Jeanty
you
felt
mentioned
this.
the Oregon game.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Unc mentioned the Oregon game. I'm glad you mentioned that because they played Oregon closer than Ohio State did. Don't forget, Oregon needed 2 special teams touchdowns to beat Boise State, meaning their offense didn't go up and down the field on Boise's defense like they did against Ohio State's defense. Oregon had almost 500 yards of total offense against the Buckeyes. They needed 2 special teams touchdowns to beat Boise State. This team is legitimate, Unc, and they're for real.
So you're trying to tell me, Desmond, that Jeanty felt like he was disrespected for not winning the Heisman. Have you talked to him yet? Because does he feel disrespected? They're almost 2 touchdown underdogs in this game against Penn State. That has to sting a little bit.
Oh, yeah. This is one of those roles that a head coach loves. He's like, listen, it's us against the world. It's us against everybody. No one gives us any credit. No one thinks we even deserve to be here. So now they're going to come out there with a chip on their shoulder. And don't forget, they're playing against a Penn State team that, I mean, listen, it's a lose-lose situation. If they win the game, they were supposed to win, right? But if they lose the game, it's like, wow, you lost to Boise State. Exactly. So in my opinion, I think Boise State is coming to this game playing with house money. This is a win-win situation for those guys.
All right, let's focus on Penn State here because Penn State finally beat SMU to secure a spot in the playoff. And we know how this has kind of gone for James Franklin and the storylines. He can't win that big game. Okay, well, they're here. So now, can Penn State win the big game? That is the question. Shannon, what do you think?
Well, they have to because, as you mentioned, Shae, that's what's been knocking on James Franklin's door. He's had some really good teams, and when he goes up against an Ohio State, somehow he finds a way to lose that game. He get in the bowl game, somehow he finds a way to lose those games. This is his opportunity, but Desmond said, but this is a lose-lose. Because if you beat Boise State, well, you're a 14-point favorite. You should have won. But if you don't, see, I told you he can't win. And if I'm Boise State, I'm going to play the disrespect card. Ashton, they disrespected you by not giving you the Heisman Trophy. They disrespected us, saying we didn't deserve to be here. And now we're 14-point dogs, 13.5, 14-point dogs. Let's go shock the world and show them that we belong. Let's show those voters that they made a mistake and gave the Heisman Trophy to the wrong guy. But Penn State, boy, this will go a long way. I don't care if I'm supposed to win. I better win. James Franklin, you better win this game, man.
Oh, 100%. You're 100% right. Because you look at James Franklin, and the knock on James Franklin is he can't win the big game. And the big game is not SMU in the playoff. Listen, you're looking at a team from Dallas that traveled up to Happy Valley to play in freezing weather. Of course, they were going to lose, and they didn't even want to be there. But now you're going against Boise State. It's not about Boise State. It's not about SMU. It's about, can you beat Michigan? Can you beat Ohio State? Can you beat one of the big dogs? So, again, like I said earlier, if they beat Boise State, you're supposed to beat Boise State. If you lose this game, then the Nittany Lions fan base is probably going to be on James Franklin's head because they're a double-digit favorite in a playoff game.
Franklin is 3-19 against top 10 teams as Penn State's coach. Drew Aller, their quarterback, 0-4 against top 10 teams. And then Franklin 1-14 against top 5 teams. Okay, so that's the narrative. And again, it is kind of a lose-lose, though. I tend to agree with you, Desmond. Let's look at the second round here as a whole. Which team has the most to prove, Desmond?
Well, this whole tournament, just from the onset, is about can Ohio State win a national championship by paying $20 million to a roster. But besides Ohio State, you got to look at Texas. A year ago, we looked at Texas, go down, they went down to Tuscaloosa. I was there, game day was there, and they beat Nick Saban and Alabama. At that point, all the talk was, oh man, Texas is back, the Longhorns is back. But then they went to the college football playoff and they lost to Michael Penix Jr. and the Washington Huskies. So it's like, okay, can they win a big game? And since then, of course, they beat Oklahoma, but they have a far better roster than Oklahoma. They went on to lose to Georgia twice this season. And that's one of the most difficult things to do in football, especially college football, is to beat the same team twice in the same year. And they lost to them in the regular season, and then they lost to Georgia in the SEC championship game, despite the fact that their starting quarterback, Carson Beck, got hurt on the last play of the second quarter and didn't play at all in the second half. So, well, he did play one play. He came in there and handed the ball off after Gunnar Stockton got knocked out the game. But my point is, they lost to Georgia twice. So if they come into the playoff now and they lose in the playoff, people will start to look at Steve Sarkisian like, my man, like last year, you had the fastest man in college football, and Xavier Worthy, and you couldn't get it done. And now this year, you still have a loaded roster, and you go out here and you lose, in the playoff. So I think that Texas is the team with Steve Sarkisian with a lot to prove in this CFP.
I won't disagree with you on this one. I think it's Ohio State for some of the reasons that you mentioned. No team have assembled a roster that was more expensive than what Ohio State trotted out on the field this season. Now, they lose at home as a 3-touchdown favorite to Michigan at home. And rightfully so. I think some of the people in Ohio, in Columbus, was like, hold on. Are we sure Ryan Day is the right guy for the job? Because we can't beat the team that we despise the most, and we want to beat more than anything other than food and oxygen. Beating Michigan is a necessity in Columbus, Ohio. And so you started to hear the whisper. Is Ryan Day the right guy for the job? Now he can erase all of that, get to and win the national championship game, and then there will be no more questions asked of Ryan Day. But I think it's a good question to ask, because I heard Coach Saban say, people are psychotic over there. Coach Saban, you know this. If you had continuously lost to Auburn, and with those guys, look at all those guys that's in the NFL. Look at all those receivers, the Olaves, the Garrett Wilson, the Smith and Jigba, the Marvin Harrison Jr.s. Look at all that talent that's in the NFL. Coach Saban, you know, had you lost to Auburn like you lose to Michigan, and you're not winning national championships with the Julios, the Calvin Ridleys, the Amari Coopers, oh, Coach Saban, you know they're going to, they were asking when you didn't get to the national championship, the national championship for 2 years in a row, has Coach Saban lost his fastball? When you coach these blue bloods, it only matters. You beat your rival and you go play for national championships.
Okay, I think you guys missed.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say is this: if Ohio State does not win a national championship, this would be the biggest failure during Ryan Day's tenure as Ohio State's head coach because of all the money that they spent, and then they handpick the talent that they want. So this is like their dream roster. They wouldn't get Quinshon Judkins. They wouldn't get Will Howard. They wouldn't get Caleb Downs. They wouldn't get Jeremiah Smith, the receiver, who's a freshman phenom. They wouldn't get all these players. They handpicked them. So if they don't win it all, this will be the biggest failure in his tenure as head coach at Ohio State. There's no doubt about that.
But guys, this is the most to prove in the quarterfinals, not in the Final Four, not in the championship game. So when you look at Texas and Ohio State, I think we're assuming that these are two teams that will make it past the next round. Wouldn't you look at teams like Boise or Arizona State who haven't been tested as much because the first round was such a blowout that we don't have those same kind of embarrassments here in the quarterfinals?
But at the beginning of the year, Shae, did you have Boise State and Arizona State on your bingo card for the college football playoff?
I didn't have Indiana where I went either, though. I didn't have IU either.
So I got
exactly.
Guess what, Shae?
Exactly.
When you ask me the quarterfinals, and if they advance to the semifinals, I'm gonna give you my same answer next week. It's gonna be Ohio State. It's Ohio State in the quarterfinals, Ohio State in the semifinals, and if they make it to the finals, it's gonna be Ohio State again.
I see. We're looking all the way ahead. That is fine. All right, Molly is not with us today, but we're going to get in on.
Shae, let me ask you this. Shae, if they lose to Oregon, what you going to say?
Then I'll have to eat my words. She's not with us on the show today, but she left us with some picks. It's time for Molly's Money Lines on ESPN Bet. Molly left a money line play for all 4 quarterfinal CFP games. Penn State tonight, then Texas, Oregon, and Georgia on New Year's Day. You like the play? Head over to ESPN Bet right now to get it with a boost.